How was your weekend, John?
It's good. It was really good. We started sports up on Saturday here in Michigan, so our winter sports season kicked off on Saturday, and it was it was long, but it was good. I mean, I worked in the mornings and then got home in the afternoon, and then we had Matt's stuff kind of going throughout the whole weekend. So it's been a long but a good weekend, really good. How about you guys?
It was nice, rejuvenating a little
Yeah,
bit. It was nice. I had a 3 day weekend. Jeremy had a 3 day weekend as well too. So
nice.
that was it was a nice little reboot.
Yeah,
Yeah, nice weather. So we were outside on Saturday. We went to the trail. Sunday, we went to church and we were with family, and I did some work on the house. And then Monday we were off and went to the trail again, or went to a different trail with grandparents, and I think we walked like 4 miles or something. But it was really nice
yeah,
long weekend. So
great.
hey, John, you have a good relationship with your dad, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm probably going to ask you just about like some of the history and talk about your experience as a son and how that
Hmm.
plays in. So if we get to that, then I just want to make sure that that's
Yeah,
good with you.
yeah.
So
And I can speak to that a little bit too, Jeremy. I've got a unique situation. I didn't know my biological dad until I was 22,
oh yeah.
and so we now have a very good relationship because I sought him out. But I as a child, my grandpa and my stepdad were like my mentors. But then it was cool. Like I was, kind of the chip on my shoulder is I always wanted to be a great dad. To to give my kids that experience. But like when now that I've met my father as an adult, like we're like great friends and great relationship, great grandparents to my kids.
Great.
So it's what's cool about it.
Hmm.
So we build on that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you guys have any thoughts or questions before we get started?
Nope. I'm here to
We're
learn
good.
today. It's a learning lesson for me, so I'm excited.
Wait. You're the show. You're the star of the show, Ciecko.
There's gonna be a quiz later, John.
All right, I'm gonna start the live. All right, here we go in 3, 2, 1. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Sports Medicine. Oh wait, I shouldn't have done that. I'm supposed to start. See, I just get in the same routine. So, if you're watching live, then I want you to think about this. If you're listening to the audio, then I want you to do this math problem while I do the intro, and then just think about the answer. 18 multiplied by 52. 18 multiplied by 52. Do that math while I intro the show. So, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the Sports Medicine Broadcast, a podcast to promote and improve your practice as an athletic trainer. I'm a foster dad, a biological father of 3 boys. John is a stepdad. He's expecting his first in May. He is also going to be a newlywed soon here. And then Ryan has 4 kids, and he just shared some information where we're going to talk about it, how the relationship with your father plays into, where he didn't meet his dad until he was 22, his biological father until he was 22. So an adult relationship with your biological parents is interesting step as well. I am, of course, the host, Jeremy Jackson. This is AT Dads 2. AT Dads 2, because last week we talked with Larry Cooper, Joel Lukey, and Ed, I can't ever say his last name, out in Vermont. And so we're talking about athletic training dads because it's important that we succeed at home and that we succeed at work. But if we fail at work, we can find a new job. If we fail at home, it's really, really not good. So doing that math, 18 times 52, that's 940 roughly, considering leap years and things like that. That's 940. So that's 940 Saturdays from the time your kid is born until the time that they leave your house and go to college. at the age of 18, more or less. So think about that. 940 is all of the weekends that you have to spend and invest in your kids. Right? It's not 18 long years, it's 940 short weekends. Where are you going to choose to spend them? Consider that as we discuss all of this here with AT Dads. All right, Ryan, we talked about you have 4 kids and you also didn't meet your biological father till you were 22. So tell us a little bit about your kids, and then we'll get to John.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, really appreciate being on here, Jimmy. Everybody who knows me knows that I love talking about my kids, love talking about my relationship with my kids and my family. And, been blessed to have 4 children. Never thought I would have 4 children. We thought we were just going to have 2, possibly even 1. And my wife found out that we were 15 weeks pregnant with my daughter. At 15 weeks, we're like, oh, we might as well keep going. We'll see how it goes. But, we've got 3 boys and 1 girl. They're all under the age of 10. So 10 just turned 9, 6, and just about to turn 5 next Monday. So a good range of personalities and life phases there. And it's absolutely a blessing every day to be a father and to see the joy in their life and to help them through their problems. So it's definitely a great opportunity for me in my life, and it's something I'm thankful for every day.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about your parental history or your life as a son real quick. Give us just a brief intro there.
Yeah, so kind of a unique backstory. Growing up, my father role models were my stepdad and my grandfather, both very, very important in my upbringing, both very valuable in my life, but it was still different from just having my father around. And when I was 22, I sought out to reconnect with my father, my biological father, and we met for the first time. And since then, we've had a constantly growing relationship, and it's really cool because he actually had 2 daughters through another marriage, so I got to find out that I had 2 other sisters. Unfortunately, one passed away, tragically last year, but my other sister, through him as well, is still alive, and we've connected. And he's a great grandfather to my kids now, and his wife is wonderful. So it's just really cool that we have that dynamic now. That even though we didn't get to take advantage of it when I was a kid, I took ownership of wanting to make that a priority. And it has now become a priority, and now my kids get to, they get to interact with Grandpa and G, because she doesn't like to be called grandmother. It makes her feel old, so she's G. So it's really cool to have that dynamic as well too, and while still appreciating and valuing everything that I got out of my relationship with my stepfather and my grandfather growing up. It's just awesome to have him in my life as well too.
History is extremely important, so it can either drive us towards what we want to be or away from, what we've seen or learned or whatever it is. But it's extremely important in understanding the history so that we can be successful. All right, John Ciecko, you got a baby on the way. So tell me a bit more about your
Thank you.
family.
Yeah, Ryan, that's an interesting dynamic that you speak of, and growing up, I always envisioned the traditional family dynamic within my life, and quickly kind of realized that that's not necessary. Wasn't something that's may not ever occur to me or happen with me. But I am in a place where I am lucky enough to have somebody in my life that is providing me a family. And we both come from big families. Jenny, my fiance, she has a larger family, 2 sisters, 1 brother. They grew up on a farm, middle of Michigan. I grew up essentially as a only child. I do have a brother. He's an adopted brother. He is 12 years older than I am. And then I have a half sister who is, quick math, I think 16 years older than I am, from my dad's first marriage. I grew up with my parents are together. So I grew up kind of that traditional idea of a family, uh, almost ignoring the fact that I had a stepsister and an adopted brother, because by the time I was 5, my brother had moved out, and he was kind of off on his own. And um, for a little bit, he wasn't really a part of the family. So, we just kind of went about our lives as an only child. And luckily my brother came back into the fold. He's been a big part of my life. He's somebody that's as different as we are. We're very similar. And he's somebody that I look up to when it comes to being a good brother. We try to complement each other. My sister lives out in Pennsylvania, so our contact isn't as great as it probably could be. But we try. But most importantly, is the relationship with my parents is incredibly important for this next step in our lives together. Having a great relationship with my mom and dad, seeing how they went about their lives while raising me, has set, I think, a really good example, I hope, for how Jenny and I are going to raise our family. And being as non-traditional as it is, we are taking the lessons that we've both learned through our childhood, and trying to apply them. And it is a work in progress, and it's something that we work at every single day, every single night, because as we, before we got on, we were discussing, our 4-year-old decided to wake up at 2:45 in the morning. And we're just navigating those things. And I'm really lucky because, you know as long as I've known Jenny, since actually before her son was born, and we didn't start dating until recently. So it's interesting that I've known him his whole life, but now we're cultivating this relationship where, I'm becoming a stepfather, and he's recognizing me as his stepdad. He refers to me as his stepdad now. The steps up to that point where, it was, I don't know who he recognized me as, but the next step was, that's my John. So he would introduce me as his John, to people. And then the next step was, once he started realizing what a stepfather is and the types of families, he kind of put those things together, and he recognizes me as his stepfather. Which probably to a 4-year-old, it's just putting words together. But, for me, it was, it was never important that he said those words. It was never like, he needs to call me this, that the titles need to be there. It was never that. But for him to, on his own, recognize it, and then to put those things together, just shows the relationship that him and I are building, as we build our family. So it's been a fun on the job training, for me and our family. And when we look at these shows, and the men that are around me, as athletic trainers, like you two guys, Larry, other athletic trainers that I work with in the state of Michigan, our current president, Mark Stonerock. We had a conversation before I took before he asked me to step into the president-elect role, a few months ago. And, that was probably, I think he may have been the first person that I told that we were pregnant, because, I had major concerns of stepping into a leadership role at the state level. But it just felt right, because I knew I was having a child. We had just found out, and Mark had just walked his daughter down the aisle. So it was like one of those things that I needed, that experience. I needed that, mentorship, because it's not just athletic training, it's family raising in a unique environment. None of our son are 9 to 5. Very few athletic trainers are 9 to 5. And how do we navigate that? And I've been able to do it very, very successfully on my own for the last 15 years. And now I have a family, and how do I change gears? And I'm having very, very difficult and important conversations with my work, because if I want to be a valued member of our community, they need to value my life and my relationship with my family and my son and my daughter, who will be here in May.
All right. So talking about Mark walking his daughter down the aisle, that's obviously an end goal for parenthood. Walking your kid down the aisle, but it's not necessarily an end goal. It's another step because Larry talked about his daughter, like he spends a lot of time with his grandkids because he has a good relationship with his daughter. So let's take a look, or let's kind of, I guess, dream big. What does the end goal for you as a parent look like? And Ryan, what are your thoughts there? What are your end goals? And then we'll work backwards from there.
What's interesting, and maybe my perspective is just unique on this. When I saw that question, I was thinking I'm not really, in all honesty, I'm not a goal setter. I set priorities, and I hope that the priorities that I set lead to the outcomes that are good, because I've come to realize in my life that there's so much beyond our control, and you can't stress over things that are not in your control. All you can do is try and own what you can own and influence indirectly what you hope to influence. And so I do have goals in my life. I do have things I would love to see down the road, but it's interesting that my perspective is more so, what are my priorities right now? And maybe it's just thinking the other, flipping it on its head a little bit. So I had to really think hard about, this 20-year question, because I don't know. I'm a go with the flow kind of guy. I recognize that at any point there could be a curveball, and right now my wife is telling me she wants to be retired when the kids are off to school and move to Cape Cod, but who knows? Next year she might say, I want to stay in New Jersey. So I try to have those visions, but I also try not to lock myself into like all or nothing on those goals. So kind of keeping that perspective as I'm talking about this, what's important to me right now is that I am setting our family up for good things down the road. We just bought our first house finally in 2020. I never thought I was going to buy a house in 2020. And we bought a house, which is now nice because now we have a nest egg for when the kids are older. It's going to help us financially down the road as well too. We're in a more stable position versus a renting position. And that's to try and set an example to our kids of, 20 years from now, when you're adults, and, 20 years from now, all of my kids will be adults. When you're an adult, you have to make these decisions. And I'm trying to keep them involved in some of the big decisions that we have to make, especially my older two, just for them to know these are the decisions you have to make as an adult. This is what it's like to buy a house. When you buy a house, these are all the things you got to take care of now that you didn't have to when you rent. So really thinking about, when I look at 20 years down the road, I'm trying to plant those seeds right now so that 20 years down the road, my kids are functioning, contributing members of society, whether they choose to go to college or not. Who knows what college is going to be in 20 years from now? It might all be technical schools. It might, who knows? But I want them to be pursuing their passion. I want them to know that they can do whatever they want to do. If one of my kids wants to be president, they can be president. If one of my kids wants to be a YouTuber, they can be a YouTuber, So and trust me, they all want to be YouTubers nowadays. So, for me, I want them 20 years from now. I want my kids to just know, hopefully my wife and I are still happy and healthy, and like everything is going good, so that, when they're out of the house, my wife and I, wherever we decide to settle up, whether it's staying in New Jersey or moving, to somewhere else for a retirement home, I would hope that always it's going to be a place where the kids can come back anytime they want. And, when they come home from college, they've always got a place to stay. And, I think that's the biggest thing it's really important for me that no matter how old I become, hopefully I'm blessed to live a long life, and my wife, that the kids always know, no matter what happens, they're always welcome back. They're always welcome to come back. They're always loved. They're always going to be supported. We may not always agree with everything they choose as an adult, because they're adults. They're going to make other decisions. But that doesn't change the love that we have for them, and that doesn't change the support that we want to give them. And John, you made a point about the importance of it's a learning process. Well, breaking news, brother, that learning process doesn't stop until forever. So, I plan on always trying to still be the best dad I can be, even 20 years from now, 30 years from now. But of course, hopefully at that point, you know what, who knows? Maybe that's starting to start the process of being the best granddad, the best grandfather. So for me, that's really what I'm thinking about 20 years from now is 20 years from now, all four of my kids doing things they love, feeling loved, feeling supported, feeling empowered, and hopefully learning the lessons that they've learned over the course of our career through my mistakes, through my wife's mistakes, through our family's mistakes that we learn from.
You
John?
said priorities over goals, and when that question was posed to me, it was, I've always been a goal setter. I'm a goal setter. I wake up every day and I think what my goals are for the day and the week. How am I reaching them? How am I getting there for the month and the year? And like I said earlier, I've done this very, very successfully on my own because it was easy. It's easy to set goals for yourself, but now I'm setting goals and priorities for four of us. And you know, it, my career was always, what does my career look like today and next week or next year? It was never, what's it going to look like in 20 years? What's it going to look like at the end of it? I just figured I would save that for the end of it. I'll get there when I get there. And now it's a much different conversation. I'm quickly finding out that I'm not an expert in anything. I don't know everything. And it's humbling, and it's at the same time, it's being humbling. It's uplifting because it's like you said, it's a learning process, and I never get to stop learning. And I have to take gratitude in that thought too, as I am going to learn something new today and tomorrow. I'm learning something new today. I'm able to function on 2 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep, and I know that's going to be happening very, very soon. In about 20 weeks, I'll be lucky to have 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. I know I'm going to be lucky and blessed to have that. So it's a fun thing. It's initially it's tough to realize it. You kind of want to balk at those things, but I try to have gratitude in those things, and I'm happy that I have that. I've always had a good understanding of sacrifice, and I look back at going to college and what my parents did for me to get through college and to make it into college. And we financially we were very stable the beginning parts of my college, and I went to a private school, so it's not an easy place to just kind of pay your financials there. I have a new understanding of sacrifice too. What does it mean to leave work early now? It's a lot easier when you have a different reason than I just want to go home. Or, you find yourself not sticking around for certain things that you did in the past. But it's learning and continuously learning, and having a better understanding of sacrifice and why you're doing it. I'm not doing it just to shave time off my commute or to get home early to watch a TV show, because God knows when's the last time I really got a chance to watch TV. And that's okay. I love that. It's been a really good experience, great experience. And I part of it is the person I'm with. And this is where it's great that I have Jeremy as a mentor and a friend. Is I look up to him as somebody who has a fantastic marriage and a great relationship and a beautiful wife. And, we look at that as a couple and we're like, hey, people can do it. And we can do it too. No matter what hard days, hard nights, hard weeks we're going to have ahead of us. We have great mentors that we can look up to. And that's why I'm so happy that we have this network of athletic trainers and fathers that we can have conversations and bounce ideas off of and joke and laugh about things. Because I don't know if I would have had that. I'm late to the game a little bit. Some of my friends have kids that are entering middle school, and other ones that are much older. And now here I am with my firstborn and a stepson who's 4 years old, and as much as I've learned about life, it's all changed because I'm looking at it through a different lens now.
So for me, the end goal would be just like Ryan said. I want my kids to always feel welcome to come back. I want them to have that relationship with me that, you know, my sister-in-law's husband, so I just say my brother-in-law, Micah, has a really good relationship with his dad. His dad was his best man in his wedding, right? And that's the kind of relationship I would like to foster and create in my sons. I don't want to have to be their best man. I don't want them to have to depend on me, but I want them to want to have that relationship. And so now, even just this weekend, you know, I look at my sons, and you know, one of my sons is being short or rude or the way they're talking to the others, and then I'm thinking, why are you talking like that? But then I stop and I think, they talk like that because that's what they see. They see that because that's the way that I sometimes talk to them. And so it's a constant like battle inside. How do I create that long-term goal? Is this little argument, is this little thing really that big of a deal that it's going to hurt that relationship in the future? Yes, I want them to be productive members of society, contributing members of society, but I want them to be long-term, close relationship. So Sarah's family, pretty much every Sunday, will rotate. We'll either be at her parents' house or our house or her brother's house or her sister's house for lunch after church. And every week we're interacting, hanging out. Our kids are playing together. Whereas with my biological family, it may have been like 4 years since I've seen some of my siblings or something like that. You know, my sister lives across the country and has 5 kids, so it's really difficult for her to get down here. But it's not quite the same. It's just not the same. To have that closeness, that intimacy, to regularly interact, you know, and that is what my end goal is. And then obviously, you know, being in 20 plus years, you know, retired, hanging out with Sarah, traveling. But again, in that same thing, I want to be able to take, hey, Jonah, send your kids with us for 2 weeks during the summer. Let's go. We're going to take them to Grand Canyon, or we're going to go whatever, you know, driving around the country, that kind of thing. And I want to be able to do that, but it has to start. It has to be now. I have to build that trust and that relationship and that desire for them to know me and for their kids to know me as well. So that's what it looks like in the end for me. And it is a constant learning battle. And, you know, I get to have conversations with Ryan or with John and things like that with so many other parents. And obviously with foster care, we are required to do trainings and updates. And then those things require me to either ignore or to grow and get better. And so that's kind of where I am as far as the long term. So John,
Jeremy,
Ryan, go ahead.
you brought up a great point. You mentioned about your relationship with Sarah's family, and that's something too I think is crucial for John as you move forward into your relationship even a deeper level with your wife and her family. So Jamie and my wife's father and mother are both alive, and they live close. That's actually why we moved to New Jersey. Is, you know, we wanted to be close to her family. I felt that it was important for my wife to be close to her family. You know, her brother and her sister and her mom and dad and extended family. And so we made that choice. And thankfully, you know, I've got a great relationship with my mother and father-in-law. Not everybody can say that. You know, there's the joke of, you know, the mother and father-in-law or the beast and whatnot, but like that's not the case in our family. And we're thankful for so much that they've helped us attain just through their support. And, you know, like you said, Jeremy, you're not as much now because of COVID, but, you know, we'll hopefully get back to it after COVID. But like every Sunday, dinner with Pop and Grandma, you know, and they'd come over to our house, or we would go to their house, or, you know, we just go do something. And, you know, they're getting up there in age. So we're trying to make the most of that time. So that's definitely an advice for everyone out there is, you know, it could be easy to see some challenges in like in-laws, but it's important to make it a relationship that's a priority because your kids see that and they appreciate that. And if your relationship with your in-laws is strained, your kids' relationship with your in-laws will be strained. You know, their other set of grandparents, their other set of aunts and uncles and cousins that they don't necessarily then get to enjoy because of, you know, something that you hold a grudge or, you know, you two can't get along. So just for everyone out there, you know, make that relationship a priority. And like every other relationship, they're never going to be perfect, but you make it a priority and your kids will see that. It ultimately benefits your kids and your whole family.
We another unique part of our situation is Jenny's family all lives in Canada, and with the borders being closed, it's been difficult, and it's been difficult for both of us because I haven't been able to really cultivate that relationship. It has been a priority, and we communicate and we talk as much as we can, and FaceTime is a nightly thing, which has been great. But it's been difficult for us because we haven't been able to go across, and it's a 3-hour drive from where we're at here in Detroit over to north of Toronto. And there was a point where I think about a month or two ago we were like, we're going, we're gonna go, and we're gonna go and visit. And we were looking through the laws, and we were looking through the loopholes, and it ended up being almost too much of a hassle to go. And the way the Canadian government and the way the Canadian people look at the virus and how it's being handled over there is much different than how it's being handled here in America and Michigan. So they are much more stringent on who visits who. We quickly found out that her family isn't really seeing each other, even though they live, within 30 minutes of each other. Or, one of the furthest one out's about an hour. They're still not able to be around each other, be with each other. So that's been hard for us to cultivate that relationship, but it is a priority of ours. It is something that we work on. It is fun that we're able to have the ability to FaceTime and to talk. And last night I was talking with Jenny's mom, and she wants to do a book club because she knows I like reading. Our styles of books are incredibly different, so we're trying to find the middle ground of what we want to read. And anybody that's ever listened to the podcast before knows the books I like to read. And Jenny's mom loves like Victorian English fiction.
Yes.
And I
With
don't
Fabio
know.
on the cover.
Probably, yeah. She suggested a book last night, and Jenny I saw the text. I didn't see the text, but I just saw Jenny get a text and her laugh, like we're laying in bed, and she's like, I don't know what my mom's thinking. She's like, and Jenny makes fun of me too. She's like, John likes to read books that makes people sad. And I'm like, that's fair. But, I get something out of them. And, but it's fun that we're able to do that. Like it's a priority of ours that we're able to, look in creating a book club for us to read and to start something. And, her sister-in-law. So it's fun that we're able to do that and joke about things like that. So, we've missed out on a lot this year, but we know that it's only going to be a short time compared to the rest of our lives. The number 940, Jeremy, that you started the podcast with, it's something that I've thought about recently when it comes to my parents and how many days do I have left with my parents and how important that time is. And now that we have a baby on the way, how important that time, is going to be, because it's going to be less time once she's here. And it is a priority for all of us that we take the days that we have together and left and ensure that they are good days, and ensure that we work on making them as good days as possible. We're never going to have perfect days. We're going to have days that we struggle together. And we've come together at the end of those days, and we've said, our priority is to make the next day better and to love each other more tomorrow than we did today. And, I'll say it again. I'm lucky to have a partner that finds importance in cultivating that type of relationship with myself, my family, and our family, and making things better for tomorrow than we had them today.
John, I should know this. I should have asked you this before, but Cece, is that her name, or is that the nickname you're keeping until you?
That's her nickname we're keeping until she's born.
Gotcha.
A handful of people know the name, but that's her nickname until she's born. So
Let's say Ciecko. That'd be a handful there. But hey,
She's gonna be a pop star.
for cute and cuddly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, John, this isn't what we kind of had in the show notes, but tell me one thing about your parents that you want to copy.
It's ingrained in me. It's the hard work and determination. My parents my dad's an immigrant. My mom's a first generation immigrant. So there's I grew up in Detroit, and anybody that knows anything about Detroit is the hard work, the grit that goes into being a factory worker. Everybody, in the 60s and 70s, in Detroit, a large majority of how people made their living and how Detroit was made was through factory work. My parents are a Detroit love story, as I like to tell people. They met each other in a factory. They developed a relationship. They hated each other at first because my mom thought my dad was somebody he wasn't, which is very similar to Jenny. How Jenny first, when we first met each other, she hated me. If I could pull her down from class right now, she'd probably go off for the rest of the podcast about how much she hated me in the beginning, and how much it's changed, luckily. But my parents were the same way. My mom hated my dad, and then they developed a relationship, and then they got to know each other, and they've been together for over 35 plus years. But the amount of hard work that went into their day-to-day life to not only survive, but to create a family life. It could have been easy for them to just live in Detroit and work in factories their whole life and be the 9 to 5 or the second shift. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they knew they wanted something better for their son. They knew that what it took for their parents to create something for them. My mom's parents came over from Mexico. They were field workers. They worked the 16-hour days. They lived in camps. They were sent back to Mexico. My grandfather, in the time before internet, in the time before phones, probably, he had to go find my grandmother back in Mexico with nothing but probably a picture. It's easy to find our families now where we just look on our phones and look at the last location they were at or whatever. But my grandfather had to go find my grandmother, and then they made their way all the way from Mexico all the way up to Michigan, and they developed a life there. My mom saw that and knew that the hard work that they put into their lives, she had to do more. And that's something that I take with me. I know whatever I've built in my life, the responsibilities that I have for my family are greater. And I know that if I want a good life for my kids, no matter what it is, Ryan, like you said, if they go to college or if they go to trade school, become YouTubers, it's on us, it's on me, it's on us as fathers to cultivate that environment for them. And I'm so blessed that, I have parents that did that. We've talked about my father. My father is a Holocaust survivor. So that's a hell of a thing to survive and to generate a family out of. And to be a factory worker, to be a veteran, to do all of those things, to be able to provide for his family for what he wanted a better life for. I carry that on a daily basis of what I want for my family going forward. And I know they're going to have a lot easier chance than I did, but I still want them to have that basis and understanding of what hard work is. Because if they're left with nothing, hard work, in my opinion, is what's going to get them to the next step.
Ryan, something you want to copy in just a second? So John, definitely the hard work is something that I want my kids. I've talked before about how my oldest son, Jonah, when he was 6, I think, bought his own bicycle. So he'd been working, saved up, like doing his chore money, saved up, and went to the store and said, "Hey, I'd like to buy this bike. It's this much, but I only have this much. Can you cut me a deal?" Because I'd been, doing the Dave Ramsey stuff. And so sure enough, at Academy, the, local sporting goods store, they said, "All right, we got you." And so he's learning that hard work. They have to do chores, earn the money. And no, they're not having to work on farms or concentration camps and things like that, but they're learning the work hard, and again, it's a daily habit, and they see me work hard and those kind of things. And I know you work hard as well, but just like most of the things here, it's going to be what we show rather than what we speak. So, Ryan, what are you going to take away from? What is the one thing you're going to copy from your parents?
Well, for me, again, just because of the unique situation of my upbringing, I'm always one to like look at, the collective whole of my family. What can I learn from my family? But then there's also what are the strengths of each individual member of my family that I can emulate and whatnot, because there was a wide range of personalities in my family, as well as in people that were influential for me growing up that weren't in my family, so you're taking just, for example, my grandfather is someone who just has been like a self-starter his whole life, and worked in the financial field for a long time, was successful, then decided, what, I want to retire and do something else, so I'm going to start a photo booth that I'm going to travel to carnivals and make people happy, take their pictures, put it on mugs, put it on t-shirts. And he just made that switch later in life because he wanted something that would give him freedom. And he started buying homes to rent them out and be a landlord. And, just like crazy little things about his life are just so inspiring to me. He was supposed to be the torchbearer to run for I think it was the 1980 or 84 Olympics, the ones that were in Los Angeles. My grandfather never started running until he was in his 40s, ended up running, I think, 7 or 8 Boston marathons. But he was going to represent his company at Transamerica to carry the torch until the very last minute when something happened and it was taken away from him. But he still has the Olympic tracksuit, and he still talks about it, it is what it is. He had the opportunity, but it was taken away. It was out of his control. Just little things like that. So that's one example of my grandfather inspires me to, always just work hard and know I can take ownership of my life. And he's, everybody's best friend, and he, just connects well with people. And, my mom and my grandma, they're very caring people, lots of love, and they give back to the family in that way. Just that balances the work side of it. My stepfather was always a hard worker to raise money for our family and support us. And, my own dad as well, he went back to school when he was an adult to get a degree, to go back to school to better himself. And now he has a very successful job with FedEx. And it's just really cool to see that you can, at any point in your life, you can change path. At any point in your life, you can go one direction or the other. It's your personal choices. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from my family is my own ownership and accountability of my life. And I can control it and go any direction I want with the right choices and priorities at any point. I think that's the biggest takeaway I get from the collective whole of my family.
So for me, my parents are divorced. It was probably when I was in college, they got divorced. And that's obviously one thing that I will not repeat. I'll die first. Okay. And you hear some of these people talk about, well, divorce was never an option, but murder, suicide, maybe, that kind of thing, but that's not the situation. I'm just, it's just kind of a little joke. So that is one of the things that I will definitely leave behind for my parents. But my mom is an active, involved part of my kid's life. My kids know, and they look forward to seeing her every week. My dad is open and loving. He's not as often as in contact with my kids, but they know him. They have good, positive experiences. I've always felt that he was welcoming and opening, and kind of bringing people in or including people. So those are definitely some of the things that I want to include, and it's actually caused some issues. Whereas I want to bring people in or say, hey, we're going to do this. Why don't you come? And Sarah's like, well, why don't we just make this ours? Let's just keep it just us. And so it's kind of a balancing act. This is what I've seen. This is what I know. This is what I want. And this is what she sees, knows, and wants. And then I kind of have to balance, where do I want to be closer to in the end? Because looking at the situation, Sarah's parents are close. Their family is close. We still are close. they know a lot about each other. It's a lot easier to have a everyday conversation rather than, oh, hey, let's catch up from the last 6 weeks type conversation. In taking a look at those, just knowing where do I want to be closer to and which way do I need to move towards? Do I need to move her towards me or me towards her? So we've kind of talked about the long run in the end, what do we want it to look like, but we have to know how to get there step by step. So we talked about 20 years. So 10 years from now, if we adopt MJ, then she would at that point be 11. I would have my youngest biological would be just about out of high school. My older two would be in college, possibly out of college for the oldest one, depending on the path and things like that. And so that's where I'm looking at in 10 years. But again, the relationship, with 10 years left, that's less than half of the 940 weekends that we have with him still remaining in the house. So it really has to be impactful. Last week with Larry, I talked about how I took my oldest son with me to present at a conference for the Louisiana Athletic Trainers Association. He was up there on stage with me. So making those meaningful, impactful memories, but also this past weekend, we go and walk the trail, or, we'll play video games together, or, set off smoke bombs, or, allow him to shoot the nail gun when we're building stuff and those type things. So it's about being there and listening, and about me modeling the behavior that I want him to demonstrate or display, but then understanding he's 10. I don't get it right all the time. He's not going to get it right, nearly as often. So in about 10 years, that's more or less what my life should look like. At that point, I'll be 40 this year, so I'll be 50 in 10 years. And then hopefully we're pretty solid financially, getting closer towards retirement. And again, if we get to keep MJ and adopt her, then she would be close to 10 or 11. So we still got a few more years before all of them are out of the house and married and whatnot. So a little bit shorter term. What do you think 10 years looks like for you, John?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you start looking at those things and the time and how much, how important that time is and how fast it'll go. I'm still kind of wrapping my head around it, how fast those things go and how fast time flies. But last night, David and I were driving up to school. I took him up there we just went up for about an hour, and he talked about a year ago, 2 Christmases ago now, the drive out to Canada, and it was like, I thought that was yesterday. And it was over a year ago. And, by that time he'll be entering high school. And Cece will be 10 years old. We want to be in a situation or a position in our lives, which we fully believe and trust that we will be in. David got to watch basketball practice yesterday. And in 10 years, he'll be potentially trying out for the basketball team. And, you start thinking about, what does my role in this, mean? We're going to prepare him for whatever he wants to be. If he's trying out for basketball or band or dance or whatever he wants to do, what is our role in at that point? And, we've always said, especially over the last couple of months, because he's going to be enrolling into kindergarten here soon. Where do we want him to go to school, and where do we want him to be, at that point? And I'm lucky enough that I work in probably one of the best schools in Michigan, if not the top 3 schools in the state of Michigan. And that's part of the hard work that I put into my career. I knew that if I ever have a family, I want them to have the best educational opportunities. And the importance of a good high school and middle school experience. That'll be something for me to navigate in 10 years if he is going to the same school that I am working at. And how do I draw the lines and draw the boundaries of being his father and his athletic trainer, or if I'm in another role, where am I my roles end and begin? Because I don't want to be in a position where we're able to take advantage of whatever my position is, but I want him to learn through lessons, and I need to be able to be hands off, and I need to be. Um, I want him and I want Cece to fail in order to learn, but I don't want them to fall. And I think that's a goal of every parent, right? We want them to fail just enough that they learn, but not enough where they fall and are falling behind. And that is a very interesting dynamic that is in my head constantly. Are we doing enough or are we not doing enough? And I'm assuming that each one of us has that same thought day in, day out. Are we teaching them, or are we leading them, or are we coddling them? um, there's great books out there, and they all have great ideas and great thoughts, but once you put them into practice, you find out that those simple words are very difficult to follow.
Ryan, 10 years?
Well, 10 years. My youngest will be a teenager. So at that point, we'll have gone through the teenage wagon train 4 times. And, um, that teenage years are rocky. That's for sure. As a kid, as a parent. And, we have 4 different personalities of kids with 4 different types of interests. So, it's my hope that 10 years from now, my oldest two will be, off to school or education of some sort, likely. But my youngest two will be in middle school and high school. And, again, I just hope that they are able to feel safe, able to, learn through those years to become their own person. And, I think it's so crucial for parents to be involved with their children's lives in the teens, as a role model, like John said, allowing them to fail but not fall. But always just knowing, hey, if you make a mistake, if you do something wrong, you need to come talk to me about it. We can learn from it. No stuff behind closed doors. Like, let's just have an open conversation, because we want to make sure that those teenage years, those can go 2 different ways for a lot of people. The experiences that you have then build on what you're going to do as an adult and where your life goes. So, for me in 10 years, again, I love my job. My hope is that 10 years from now, I'm still in the same, job with the same company, maybe elevated, but like the same company. My hope is the catalyzing athletic trainers side project is building some momentum, so that when I am ready to retire, that can kind of be kind of a fun little end game for me. But, when it comes to my kids and my family, I just hope that we're at that next level then, where my youngest two, or who knows what sport they'll be playing or what activities they'll be doing, and traveling around, making sure they can take advantage of opportunities that maybe I didn't have when I was a kid, or that they choose to want to take advantage of, and supporting them in any way I can. So, who knows what 10 years is going to bring, but just like you, Jeremy, I'm going to beat you to 50 by a few months. So I'm going to be 50 in 10 years from now, which is scary to think about. But, I hope that the teenage years for my kids are memorable in a positive way. I hope they have great memories coming from them, and I hope we really make that the best decade ever. That's the hope. This decade's better than the last. The next one's better than the next. So, I hope that the next 10 years is going to be great.
Just recently, one of my sons broke a window at my grandparents' house, or at his grandparents' house, and the first thing he did was come in and say, "Dad, can you come here?" And so, like, I could see his face, like something not good happened. And he was doing something he shouldn't have done and broke the window. Says, "Okay, well, we need to, we need to go tell him, and we need to be honest, tell him what happened, and ask what you can do to fix it." And so then his grandpa, so my father-in-law, said, "Oh, look, I forgive you. It's not a big deal. Let's just make sure that everything's safe." So we put tape on the window, vacuumed it up, but the fostering that relationship, to where a 6 to 10-year-old boy will come and say, "Hey, I messed up," instead of trying to hide it or like lie or blame somebody. It's just, okay, that comes, I would say, mostly because of the relationship that my wife has built, and I've had to learn, like, well, don't overreact, just be calm, give them that opportunity to share with you the bad stuff. Because if you overreact, if you're really harsh, which I have a tendency to be, then they're less likely to share the good or the bad. And so because of that relationship that we've built, he was able to say, I messed up. What do we need to do to fix it? And it wasn't just like, hey, I'm worried about getting in trouble. It's, I'm worried about fixing the situation. And that is what I want in the end, right? I can't do that naturally. I have to be intentional about allowing that conversation to happen, about fostering that relationship with each of my boys, and not coming in, at a level 7, 8, 9, 10, and just like, all right, well, stuff happens. Let's just take care of it. And like, oh, you broke another thing. Or, all right, well, hey, what can we do to prevent it? What can we do to fix it? How can we make it right? All right, cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was just a recent situation. And again, even yesterday, I was tired after our long walk. I was laying on the couch. I just put the baby down. Dad, will you play a game with me? Okay. Right. I don't want to be too busy or too occupied with other things. I want to be able to say okay. And if I want, in the end, for them to say, hey, Dad, will you come to my game? Hey, Dad, will you be my best man? Then it has to start right now with, yes, I'll play that game with you. Yes, I'll put my phone away. Yes, I'll include you in whatever I'm doing, and I'll be included in whatever you're doing. So, all right. So we've talked about the end goal, 20 years, 10 years. Let's bring it a little bit closer to home. John said, he usually looks at like the 1 day, the 1 week, the next year kind of goals for his career. So thinking about next year, none of my kids will be teenagers. Hopefully we're adopting MJ in the next year, but again, that's foster care. We don't know what's going to happen there, but we'll just continue to love on her until we don't have that option anymore, or throughout her whole life, if that's the option we have. And so within the next year, I'll have kids. All right. There we go. All right. So in the next year, we'll have kids again in the same schools, so that situation won't be different. But what does that look like for you in the next year?
Well, for me, I'll start with this. It's just, looking at what can I do right now. And it comes down to cherishing those little moments. Like you said, Jeremy, when they ask you to play, it's easy to just say, I'm tired. I don't feel good. I was working all day. But, if you say no repetitively, they're going to stop asking you. And whatnot, very, very important to engage. So I try my best to do that. Of course, just like you said, I'm guilty of, sometimes I'm just too tired, or, I just want to shut down, but I have to do that. So for me, it's just embracing every moment. When this year, because we moved, we had to, my son started at another school. My two that are in elementary school, we wanted to keep them at the same school for this year. So we have to drive them into school we couldn't use the bus anymore. So, so my good time every other week, because of being hybrid, they're every other week in school, is I'm the one that they get in the car and I drive them to school. And, I asked them, what are you looking forward to today? And, just have little conversations. My oldest son actually likes to listen to like the news a little bit. And, we kind of talk about what's going on right now. So it's really cool to have that experience, just those micro bits before I go to work every day. Because my schedule's all over the place. It's not a 9 to 5. Some days I'm working nights. Some days I'm working mornings. It's all over. So the most important thing for me is just embracing every moment that I have with them, even if it's just sitting around playing video games, or reading a book to my kids, or listening to them read to me, or going to a Cub Scout event with my oldest son, or going to watch my youngest kids play baseball, or my daughter play soccer or something. So it's about embracing the moments for me. And I think if I prioritize that, if I prioritize embracing those moments, we're going to get to where we want to be in the 10 and 20 year mark.
Yeah, Ryan, I think you even said it back in June during the NATA, the AT Dads chat, that breakout room. It was learning to cherish the moments and learning to cherish the good ones over the bad ones. And for me, it's creating the identity of those times. Do I want to create the identity of our relationship based off of the bad times or the times we're upset? Or do I want to base the identity of our relationship and our family over the fun and the good times? And like I said, over this past year, I've recognized how fast time will go. And, it's cherishing those goofy, funny moments. And I can share with you guys after we go off something that David had said yesterday that is just one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. And prioritizing that and making sure that that's how we build the identity of our family off of those great times, rather than being bogged down by the upsetting times and the days that are really tough. That's probably the first thing that I'm trying to do with it. The second one is really focusing on my relationship with Jenny. We have a child on the way, and our relationship will probably change, or the dynamic is going to change very, very quickly. I read a really great book recently called Date Your Wife, and I'm taking a lot out of that, and it's helped me prioritize and goal set with us, and really taking a look at our relationship, because if our relationship isn't as strong as it can be, we're probably going to struggle through that first year or so with Cece. And I don't want that. I don't want to have the identity of us raising a child together based off of negatives. I want to base it off the positives, and make sure that at the end of all of this, that the positive interactions outweigh the bad ones and the negative ones, and that our children can look back on their life and say, I have a great family life because of what I learned from my parents. And that's what I want to leave as a legacy for our kids and our family, is to make sure that we lay that foundation, we build that capital, and we give it to our kids as they grow older.
Whoever recommended that book must have been a very wise person. All right. So it's kind of about that time. We're gonna close it out here. There's a lot to everything we're talking about. So understanding the history. So looking at your family, looking at what was good, looking at what was bad. Obviously, I said I will not go through divorce. It won't happen. That ends here with me. That changes, right? So that's not something I'm going to continue on with my kids. So I've got to decide, these are the things that I want them to see. How am I going to model that each and every day? Like Ryan said, am I going to drive them and talk about the news, even though I freaking hate the news? Am I going to talk about it because it's important to them, right? Am I going to steal those moments away? Am I going to have those hard conversations like John is doing right now? Hey, I need to have time at home, right? I've had those, but some of them didn't go so well, right? Some of them were just like, suck it up, or it's too bad. And I'm like, well, I need to figure out how I can do better. How can I have that conversation better? Because this is the priority, and something's going to happen. Either I'm going to walk away or, whatever. And so something, you have to prepare, figure out how, and, we've talked about all that leadership capital and everything like that before. And when I was talking about like the kind of the call to action today is, if you hear this, Dad, can you play this with me? Or Dad, can you look at this with me? Or are you too busy with your phone? I've heard that from my kids. I have personally heard that from my kids. Dad, are you too busy with your phone, or can you play this game with me? That will be that would be huge in the long term. Like, are you too busy to do this with me? And so think about that question. Are you too busy right now to create the end goal? So I know that we had the conversation with Larry recently and about what his life looks like, and we have another one coming up with Ryan and two of his coworkers and their wives about what they've done well and what they've done poorly as athletic trainer dads, and so I look forward to those conversations, continuing to share my struggles, because if I'm struggling with it, then somebody else is, and maybe I can just offer some encouragement, or you can offer me encouragement as well. So,
Jeremy, can I add one action step too, real quick? I think this, just because this is athletic trainers listening to this, I want everyone who has listened to this to think about all of these lessons, because they also apply in your job, about being an effective athletic trainer, about being an effective leader if you're a person who leads a team. So think about everything we've talked about in the scope of our family, and think about your work family. And am I doing this stuff for the people that I have to be present for at my job as well?
All right, that's exactly what I was going to do. Is, hey, what's out the door? What's your last call to action or your last words of advice, John?
It's the prioritization of what's important to you and what's important to your family. If you would have asked me this a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have an answer for you, or I wouldn't have an effective answer for this conversation. I don't even know why you would have had me on this podcast a year ago to talk about AT dads. But it's reorganizing your priorities and your goals, and understanding what sacrifice means in a different lens. Ryan, you said it right at the beginning. It's the learning process is never going to end, and to have gratitude for that, not look at it as a daunting task. It's something to learn from it, but have a great time with. And I'm really excited about that, and I think that's something that people can take away.
So I highly recommend all dads check out all husbands check out Date Your Wife. It's a book that I've sent to a bunch of different people. I highly recommend it, and it'll give you like actionable steps, game plan, written out, thoughtful way to love your wife, because then from there you can love your kids better as well. Ryan hosts a podcast, Catalyzing ATs, which he's been on here before. He's talked about that as well, and I'll have links to that in the show notes. You know how to get a hold of John Ciecko. Find him on Twitter. Ryan says Catalyzing ATs is the best way on social media there to get a hold of him. And he has a podcast, like I said, as well, and he kind of talks about his life as a dad, as an athletic trainer, and helping to grow and encourage athletic trainers to move on to the next step of whatever their career is. John, when you're on here, we always talk about Myotech. So, what do you have for us this year or this week about Myotech?
Yeah, I think I've said it in the past. These guys have been, this organization has been fantastic through the pandemic. They were able to pivot and to really focus on getting the appropriate PPEs, getting out the regular, equipment that we normally use or supplies that we normally use. And they've been fantastic. So give them a shout, give them a look. They are here for athletic trainers. They are an athletic trainer focused company, and they love what we do, and they really respect our profession.
So Ryan just had to bounce. He had to take his son to the doctor, and in the intro, he put that he was awarded Best Dad of the Year according to a handmade card he got from his kids. And if you're watching live, oh, he's still there. Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to say goodbye. I want to say thank you, Jeremy and John. I love talking shop with you fellas. Continue to do the great things you're doing. I really appreciate your time. And yep, I got to get my kid to the eye doctor right now. So I'm going to peace out, but we'll talk to you all again real soon.
All right. See you, Ryan.
Take care.
So Ryan had his card, and I'm wearing my number one dad shirt that my kids gave me a couple years ago. So a couple years ago, Sarah made me a mouse pad, and it had like a picture of me and I think my firstborn son, maybe even my second, something like that. And then my son wrote in pencil on the mouse pad, "Best Dad Ever," something like that. So it's like, you get a little upset because they're graffitiing, but then you stop and think, he wrote "Best Dad Ever" on this thing. Like, is that something you're really going to be upset about? All right. And so, again, coming in at a lower level with less intensity is super important, in cherishing those moments. And it still says in pencil on our mouse pad, "Best Dad Ever." So those are the moments that you want to live for as a dad. All right, John, any other thoughts, questions, concerns, things we need to address?
No, not that I can think of. I hope there's nothing else that we can think of, so, or that we need to address.
Well, I mean, if there's other deep questions that you had that we didn't get to, so.
I'm sure they're going to come up as soon as we go off, or tonight or something.
Or tonight, yeah. Yeah, there'll be plenty of, short sleep nights and everything like that. So just as long as you know that going in, you're on the same team, you give 100%, you're willing to help, you ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, learning that's more important. I think I've over the past couple of years is being more comfortable with asking for help, but now it's not just being comfortable, you have to do it. And I'm happy that I have friends and mentors that I can look up to or shoot text to or call when I need it. I'm really lucky in that case. We're really lucky that we have a great friend group around us and family around us that we're able to do that. And we know that not a lot of people do have that. So we do take a lot of gratitude in that.
All right, lots of diapers. If you want to send John Amazon gift cards for diapers, you can hit him up there as well.
Thank you.
So I forgot to mention over here in the Facebook Live, Ed chimed in saying, hey, thanks for the conversation. Peter Sand chiming in saying, thanks for sharing your experience and perspective. So literally, we want to have this conversation. Obviously, we're having it now. We've had it before. If you're listening, have a question, message me, message Ryan, message John. You're not alone as an athletic trainer dad. You're not alone as a father or as an athletic trainer. There are other people. So just like John said, use that friendship, the network, or just reach out. Have people, randomly reach out saying, hey, what do you think about this? How do you do that? That's why I do this, is so that I can learn and so that I can help others. So reach out. Don't be afraid. Mr. Jeremy Jackson on most social medias, and I'll do what I can to help you, myself, or connect you with other people. So for Jeremy Jackson, John Ciecko, Ryan Stevens, this is AT Dads 2. So sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/AT Dads 2. That is a wrap. Thanks.